Hi, you're with India Post Live, India's first live news conversation web TV, and the conversation today is going to be around the new government, of course, and how we are seeing some sort of a change as far as communication is concerned of this government. And joining us on the conversation, of course, we have Jai Jaitley joining us. Of course, everyone knows who Jai Jaitley is, and she'll be giving her analysis of what's going to happen in this government. And Shahzad Poonawala, lawyer, activist, Congress sympathizer, to say the least. And we also have Shailja Chandra joining us on Skype. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. But before we get into the conversation, we put together a small story on what to expect from this government as far as social media is concerned. Let's take a look. If the previous UPA regime was as reticent, the new government under Narendra Modi will be as open as a book on social media. Modi has directed all his ministers to open Twitter and Facebook accounts and keep their followers regularly updated with the work being done under various ministries. Modi himself still maintains his personal Twitter account that has almost 4.5 million followers. With most of young India being active on social media, Modi hopes to gain as much publicity and popularity amongst the new voters of India. A healthy trend that shows that the new Prime Minister wants his government to communicate. Little wonder, all ministers are now rushing to be more visible on cyberspace. Okay, so I'd like to start with Jaya ma'am first. Ma'am, the previous regime, we saw that it was pretty quiet, we didn't know what was happening, but how do you see it fanning out from now, as far as Modi government is concerned?
Well, I think the comparison is very stark, and that's why perhaps some people are saying this government is too communicative or too noisy or too talkative or whatever, because we're not used to that kind of accountability. But I think that there are two very good things about this particular system. One is that you will not have, hopefully, ministers and others jumping towards the cameras and media, but instead they have to take responsibility for every word that they put down. Once it's there in black and white or in Twitter, however you call it, or in Facebook, then they really have to be responsible and they can't say, now we were misquoted. So that's one good thing. The other is, certainly in a democracy, accountability is all. And they have to also, I think as a parallel, turn much more of their paperwork onto the net and onto computers so that people can online apply and deal with complaints. It's much cleaner and it's less corrupt, and it probably is much quicker too. So people won't have to crawl around looking for who am I related to, who can I meet at a cocktail party and then go and ask a favor the next day. This kind of thing has to stop, because this is what has corroded a lot of our system and irritated the public who can't have access to everyday governance.
Talking about the contrast, Shahzad, you were one of the few people who actually advocated social media, but I don't think your party was that forthcoming.
No, actually, let me correct what has been done here. Actually, the institutionalization of space and presence of government in social media began during the UPA regime. Manish Tiwari, in fact, pioneered it. It was called the New Media Wing, which was created. Actually, it's called the Bureau of New and Concurrent Media, if I get the terminology right. Yeah. Allocations for the budget were made in the 12th five-year plan for this, and it was taken forward. In fact, if you see the PMO's Twitter and Facebook account, Ministry of External Affairs, Planning Commission,
a
whole range of ministers coming on
the Congress party.
Yeah, now we come to the Congress party. As far as adapting to the social media mindset, using it effectively, the BJP of course did better than us, and there is every logic to do it better than to do it well, because 65% of the population is below the age of 35 and they are communicating using this. The BJP did do a better job of it than the Congress if you put them together, but when it comes to government space, the first people to institutionalize it were the UPA, and there's no denying that. These are records that can't be changed. But if BJP is continuing the legacy, it's great. Let me tell you one thing about accountability. Accountability is different from information dissemination. For somebody to tweet about a policy or to tweet about information is one thing, but to hear the other side and to respond to it and have a dialogue is quite another. So if they do that, that's most welcome.
Okay, we'll get in another point. We've got Shailja Chandra joining us. She's, of course, she was former Chief Secretary of Delhi. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us in the conversation. As Jaya ma'am was saying that, not just tweeting out about what you're doing, but also a more transparent system needs to be in place. I mean, how do you see that happening in this new government?
Well, I think they're already on track. They are using Twitter and Facebook extensively. I do think that by being able to put forward what you think as a person, not as a minister necessarily or as somebody heading a ministry, you put across your point of view, you have a large number of followers who then are interested in a particular area. It could be infrastructure, it could be health, it could be tourism, and they then start prodding you about developments which ought to take place or slamming you for not doing something which you are not aware of, but they simply say, what do you think of this? What do you think? And they'll put up a picture which will be quite the contrary of what you claim you're doing. So I think this puts you on your toes. You also have to come through as a thinking person who is also thoughtful, not somebody who's just brash and arrogant. So I think Twitter gives you that handle, and I'm sure that this would pan out not only in English but in regional languages also by and by. And I do feel that, you talk the UPA government did, I would say, good things in terms of right to information. But how many people know how to use that and to keep on clobbering away at the system, going from PIO to CPIO to the Information Commission, blah, blah. You want a reply now and here. And I think Twitter is probably, I'm on Twitter, and although I'm overage to be on Twitter if there was an age limit, I do find that whatever information I get from political scientists, from health experts, areas I'm interested in, I am on top of the situation even before I've opened the morning newspaper. And I've seen the international news on something which is of relevance long before one has looked at all the op-eds in the Indian newspapers, which are not bad, they're wonderful. But you get a perspective and you get it very fast. And if you're following the right people, I think you get the kind of nuanced arguments. You've got to be, of course, quick about it. You can't lumber. You have to also add your 2 bits to what you think. I think that Twitter, it definitely, between the two, I would rate Twitter much. I'm not making a case for Twitter, but I'm making a case for government being run using technology, and Twitter is one of the most efficient, I would say. I'd also say that when it comes to questions of accountability and all that, the basic problem with all governments, and I've had 45 years of dealing with government, and this is a perspective most anchors on TV never give you time to develop. Since you have not interrupted me, I'd just like to develop one point and then I'll keep quiet. The point is that you need a leader to be able to see the bigger picture. Health will always see it from a health point of view. The Ministry of Home Affairs will see it from a security point of view. The railways will see it from one point of view. Steel and coal will see it from another point of view. Power will have its own tale of woe. You need somebody on top to say, this is the way to go. That was missing, I think, in the UPA. I'm very hopeful that because of leadership, those guys, they're not small crinkles. They are the things that make the difference between night and day. Normal programs are always made by bureaucrats. They get the stamp of approval, they go to cabinet, they get announced, they proceed. That's not the big deal in government. The big deal is much, much bigger, but it needs a much larger vision, leadership, and the ability to take a decision, not sit on the fence.
Okay, so that's saying a lot. As ma'am, you were saying about the comparison. You've seen the previous NDA regime function. How do you see this government actually, being open to change like the way we're discussing?
Yeah. Well, just before that, I'd like to go to what Shehzad said about the UPA being good at this, because I remember we have to also think about when this technology actually came into the public for use. The last days of the NDA set up a website, but that was a new thing.
Right.
In fact, .com and all that stuff was only just about starting.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah, about 2000.
Yeah, so it was not in everybody's hands, and therefore it did not happen in the NDA. The UPA, certainly they tried to do it, but I think the leadership was not communicative, so even this was not a communicative handle. But I would say that there were differences. Shailaja, you would know that there are differences depending on who's handling the ministries. In my experience of the UPA, comparing two different ministries or departments or whatever you want, I won't mention names, One was excellent. You were asked to just put your proposal online and follow it up after 2.5 months, not before. Don't phone anybody. And after 2.5 months, without any safarish, your work was either cleared or rejected. In another department, all very open, personal, everybody there. But even then, it has taken us 2.5 years to trudge back and forth to various sections of the government to just submit papers which are meaningless and will just crowd their table. So it was not all pervading. What I think in this government is going to happen is that the Prime Minister is going to make this all pervading. It's going to be a common system that everybody has to adhere to. You can't have one department not feeling like doing it and another one rushing ahead. And that kind of control, I think, is important because the whole government has to give an image, not just one minister trying one-upmanship or one bureaucrat doing better than another. And once the system works and there is transparency in place with the technology that today cannot be fiddled with, I think India has a new step, a new world to go into, and I think we are really ready for it.
Shahzad, coming to that point, a new world, I mean, Rahul Gandhi and the works, everyone is very tech savvy, but it appears that the Congress party just woke up to it a little bit too late.
You've used the right word. It appears so, but it's actually not so. Because if you see the RTI Act, like Shailaja ji was mentioning about it, you don't have to run to PIOs and CPIOs. The RTI Act is entirely online. You can file an RTI with any ministry or any department of the central government. It will take you less than 5 minutes. I can promise you that. After the show, I can show you. But nobody knows about this. So we have not been able to communicate that we did make very good use of the technology. Jayaji has a point that perhaps it can be made all pervading and not just for some departments in the government, which I hope the new government will do. But let us again not confuse this with accountability per se. Access is not always accountability. For instance, Mr. Modi, I have read that one of the proposals that will go to Mr. Modi is that social media should be screened for morality. Now, these are the same people who were blaming us for 66A and all these kinds of things. But now if they're going to introduce morality to screen social media, what does that say? Mr. Jaitley yesterday posted the RBI credit policy on his Facebook. I welcome that. But when Mr. Tharoor used to talk about other policy initiatives as Minister of External Affairs, many BJP people would pan him. So let's not get into that. Access is not accountability. Accountability is a whole different ball game. We hope this government will be more open in terms of allowing institutional continuance of things like RTI and not diluting them and continuing their presence on the online mechanism and technological mechanism. So I think that is another different ball game.
Okay, so we've also got my namesake Sanjeev Singh joining us from Lucknow. Sanjeev, thanks so much for joining in the conversation. Sanjeev is of course the member of the National Executive of the BJP and also in the IT cell of BJP. Sanjeev, we've seen a welcome change in this new government that Mr. Modi has asked all his ministers to be on Twitter and Facebook. But as Shahzad was saying, the point is you can be transparent, but accountability, how are you going to ensure that it will lead to accountability also?
The point is increasing transparency by itself is actually increasing accountability. And I'd like to mention what, give a take on what Shahzad Bhai was mentioning about RTI being available. So we have progressed further. Our objective is not only to keep ourselves limited only to RTI, it is about DTI, embracing DTI, that is duty to inform. And this is where social media and social governance is going to play a large role, a big role in enabling and empowering citizens to constantly be abreast of developments happening at government level and also participate. It's an interactive and participating form of governance which we are going to unleash in days to come. Okay,
but it sounds very ambitious as of now, but how hopeful are you that it will actually start delivering? Because earlier also such projects were started, but people were not aware of it.
To us, just look at how we have exploited social media technology to the hilt in our election campaign. So the expertise is very much there and the intention is there. So when you combine expertise with intention and resolve, you are going to get success. So rest assured, wait for some time, slowly these initiatives will unfold and everybody will stand empowered.
Okay. I'd like to bring Shailja ji back into the conversation. Ma'am, if you can hear us, talking about bureaucracy, I mean, do you think they're ready? I mean, they're mentally ready to, adapt this change, because we've seen, they're not so open to change. So how tough is it going to be for them?
Well, there are two kinds of bureaucrats, and probably over all my years, I've always noticed this very sharp divide between those who belong to the old school, who want stenographers to take dictation, who want drafts, who want to sit and correct the drafts, who want to put up things in a very organized, systematic way to the minister, and also have long briefing sessions. And there are hands-on bureaucrats who are very, very quick on all the social media. They can use all the technological devices to great advantage. And I think that is the kind of change, unless the feeling goes that it matters that you belong to the second lot, that the first lot are dead wood, that sort of style will not really give you, it will not take you anywhere. I think that message will start getting, passed on, because those who refuse to change will become stultified and will be of no use to a new system. But I must say that since Mr. Poonawala first praised me and then criticized me, that's the typical style. I'm not a politician, I'm apolitical, but I also have learned that don't take anything just lying down. I must tell him that I'm very well aware. I've handled RTI, I've been the Information Commissioner for Delhi myself. But RTI is bang on. Yes, you can put in a request online, you can do anything, but the lead time, if you look at all the figures and reports, is 7 months to 2 years to get a reply. So let's not, have a halo around RTI. Let's face the reality. The second thing that I wish to say about this bureaucrats and their style of management, you see, the system has made bureaucrats very risk averse. It has made them very worried about their future, getting the right kind of confidential record, which really means keeping 2 bosses or 3 happy. Sometimes there's a tug of war, sometimes there's none. But if your work is to be judged and you're going to be given a pat on the back for being quick, being efficient, being resourceful, showing initiative, then they will start working. But if you're going to get a pat on the back because you were seen on the golf course together, you've been having a drink together at the club in the evening, and you've been having a good time over the weekend, not that they are not working. There is a lot of work which also goes on, but that style, in a way, is a very old-fashioned, yes minister, that kind of pontificating style. I think the younger people are much more savvy, and I'm not saying younger people should replace older people, but there should be a clear message that one wants modernity, one wants all the banalities of the old age to be given up, and this kind of arrogance that, because I'm senior, I know it all, that I hold a meeting and everybody else listens to me. These are the kinds of things that make bureaucracy dull. And they can change if leaders show the way, if ministers themselves show the way and have the kind of leadership. The secretaries will definitely show the way. But I must make a point that I've been saying it 3 to 4 times over, and I hope I don't get into trouble with the Supreme Court of India. But by saying that there will be no protection henceforward to senior bureaucrats and they can be investigated on any complaint, I think that would be very, very short-sighted, not of the Supreme Court, but short-sighted of the system. I'll tell you why. Every time you take an economic decision, you're going to benefit someone. Every time you're going to also, definitely, people are going to lose because of that decision. It could be roads, it could be highways, it could be privatization, it could be many things. The easiest target is the sitting bureaucrat, and you will get complaints galore, signed, unsigned, anonymous, pseudonymous, all kinds, which will be thrown. They all make sense on first reading, but if you're going to allow police investigation into those complaints, it would be the biggest tragedy, because the CVC report shows how hardly 2 or 3% of the cases actually end up in any kind of action being taken. 50% such complaints get completely shelved. This is an important aspect which I think the new government must look at, because otherwise bureaucrats will pretend to be very, very smart and with it, but at the back of their mind they will be very worried about how to cover their flanks by roping in more and more people to get.
Okay, so that's a genuine concern, ma'am.
Well, I have a point that came to me listening to Shaila Reddy was that, earlier the bureaucrat, yes, he would want organized papers and notings and all that. We are very happy when we write to some officer in any ministry and we get an email reply back. It's like a big new world for us to say, oh gosh, how nice of him to reply by email. But then I think, what happens for him to send a particular email to me? Doesn't it have to get noted on a file? Doesn't there have to be some clearance? When we talk about quick work and quick decisions, what happens to the accountability factor? That 3 years later, if somebody says, how could you have helped that so and so? Where is it on file, the justification? Did you get permission from your senior? What happens about all of that? So surely somewhere the paperwork has to go on while the communications also continue on the net.
I think that's the point Shahzad has been trying to make all this while.
Actually, what has happened is that there's slight confusion. Access on social media per se does not amount to accountability, and I'm a little disturbed about how even Sanjeev and Shailaja ji are trivializing the RTI Act. Let me tell you that the last time I filed an online RTI, I got the reply in 4 days, and there's a 1 month limitation. If I don't get a reply, I go to the first appeals officer online again without paying any money. Now, let me tell you one thing. Sanjeev spoke about duty to inform and right to information. If Sanjeev's Gujarat government was performing its duty to inform, Amit Jetwa wouldn't have to use the right to information and he wouldn't get killed for it. So you see, I may tweet all I want as a minister about innocuous things, I may look very accessible, but how will you know what is the system delivering, whether it's giving a contract to Sanjeev Singh without him being deserving? That's where the intervention of RTI comes through, and I think that we must not confuse access to accountability with due deference to Sanjeev and Shailaja ji.
Okay, Sanjeev, if you can hear us, the point that Shahzad is trying to make, also the fact that, he said there's going to be that moral policing on social media.
It's been said.
And, there is these genuine fears that people have that, someone like Mr. Modi could actually push forward for all this. So, your take?
It's happened in Goa.
See, first thing, everybody should be clear about it. You cannot, police the social media, the internet. You simply cannot censor that particular medium. So that is one thing which everybody should rest assured. Nobody is going to moral police the social media. The other thing which Shailaja ji was mentioning about our bureaucrats. See, I'll just recount a very recent happening. Some 4 or 5 days back, Piyush Goyal got bureaucrats from 3 ministries to sit together to sort out 27 intractable issues which were remaining unresolved since long. Now these guys, they sat together. They were able to sort out 15 of those seemingly intractable issues in that meeting itself. Only 2 issues remain to be, which could not be resolved. The other remaining, other than 15 plus 2, those they have agreed to, work on and come back again after a week, sit together and sort those out as well. So our bureaucrats are smart enough people. If the political resolve is there, they will learn, embrace the social governance model of governance which we intend to, implement to enable and empower citizens. So do not worry about bureaucrats. Our bureaucrats are smart, lot. They can definitely get down to delivering on social governance also as we envisage.
But Sanjeev, Mr. Modi has said time and again that he is not a man who's used to Delhi and Delhi circles. So are we going to see something like that happening as far as bureaucracy is concerned, because they have to push forward the agenda?
See, the objective is, so long as the bureaucrats are working at the level which is expected of them, in the manner in which it is expected of them, there is nothing to fear among the bureaucracy. There is nothing to fear at all. The objective is, as Modi ji said, parakram ki parakashta karna hai. So he himself is, a role model of that particular thing. Point is, we have to work. We are an underdeveloped country with a lot of potential. So the system has to work, and the system has. If the system works, we can, reach a lot of things which are unheard, which seemingly are impossible as on today.
Okay, ma'am, I'd like to bring you in. The previous NDA regime was all about teamwork.
Yes.
A lot of people and collective responsibility. But in this government, it looks like a one-man show. I mean, is that good or bad?
No, I think there is very much teamwork. You have 3 or 4 people who have the most important portfolios getting together to discuss various things. You also have, as Sanjeev Singh mentioned, that you have ministers now calling bureaucrats together. That means the bureaucrats can't listen to that one minister, they have to go back to their own minister. But then it becomes a larger team. It becomes 3 or 4 ministers with 3 or 4 bureaucrats, and that is bringing the kind of synergy that they want, an organic connection. For instance, I've been thinking like handicrafts, livelihood, culture, tourism, all these things can go together. Now, if I have to go to 4 different doors and 4 different ministers and convince all of them, I would certainly much prefer that there is a common pool where they sit and discuss the whole idea. One has to knock, otherwise, if I wanted to teach literacy to craftspeople, the education ministry said it's the handicraft people's job. The handicraft says, no, this is education. It can't happen like that.
Yeah.
So, this particular new system demands teamwork, which will happen.
Shahzad?
I am again confused. This is not necessarily new because interministerial groups, as they are actually the terminology goes, were a legacy not just of the UPA but even the NDA.
But do you think
government
if Congress had 282 members in 2009, do you think they could have done something like that?
done something like what?
Like, just making the ministry more lean and having better coordination.
It was done in the last UPA government. We had, that's what I'm saying, we had IMGs, it's called interministerial groups, where bureaucrats of, say, the environment ministry, infrastructure ministries sat together. Now, it's ironical that the BJP on one hand says that we will do away with GOMs and EGOMs, where bureaucrats of ministries also came together, yet they continue to market the fact that we are calling bureaucrats of several ministries together. So I'm a little confused as to what is the BJP saying. Are they against the idea of coordination which happened in GOMs, EGOMs and IMGs, or are they not against it?
Okay.
I'm actually very confused because BJP adopts our legacy, says it was bad during our time, whether they did it for Pakistan policy. They say its legacy is bad, they continue the same thing, and then they say that they are good at doing
No,
it.
I will say that within the GOMs, the problem was the GOMs, 80 of them as they're supposed to have been, slowed everything down because finally there was nobody to give a final nod. Okay, finally come with a decision. No decisions took place with these GOMs. It just became more and more and more GOMs because the PM himself was not able to decide. Here what they are saying is, without the GOM structure, work within the ministries, and if there is a hitch, the boss will decide. The boss has to be the boss. Otherwise, why is the Prime Minister there at all?
Well, I just think it's a convenient argument. You do it in Gujarat, you have GOMs in Gujarat, you have GOMs in your NDA government, you do it all across, and then you just say that because you did it, it's wrong, and we do it, it's right. I think it's a little convenient, but anyways, I guess opportunism and convenience has been a hallmark of the BJP. That's...
Anyways, I'd like to bring in Shailja ma'am again. Ma'am, we're just about to conclude the conversation. Your final comments on, this new government trying to communicate and, get feedback from the people, your final comments.
I think that the fact that they are using all these, the social media and trying to communicate is excellent. But I would also like to caution that the larger part of India does not have broadband, does not have access to all the modern technology. And therefore, communication with that set of people who have their problems, which are much more serious at times, is something which would need advocacy and understanding in the level of the panchayats, the level of the blocks. That would become very important as time goes on. And just because, I must say that I was accused of trivializing RTI. I'm one of the biggest fans of RTI, so please don't put words in my mouth. And I've administered it and I admire it. But let us not get over what reports say, which is that is the lead time. It's not your individual case which is at stake here.
Okay.
Lastly, I would like to say that the fact that bureaucracy has been asked to sit together is a clear paradigm shift from having ministers sitting together. You see, most of these problems are related to acts, rules, procedures, systems. These are things which bureaucrats are very conversant with. They are very worried about rocking the boat. This time, when they come to a conclusion as bureaucrats and a minister takes responsibility for it, they will not mind at all. But if they have to brief an individual minister who goes and sits in a group of ministers and then sort of backs on behalf of what has been told to them, it leads to some sort of delay and you might say dissipation of energy, and nothing really comes out of it. I think you do need a leader. Ultimately, the ministers do not take a call and they also start sitting and saying, I'll throw this up higher and higher. then of course one has to wait and see. I can't really look at
Okay.
the crystal ball and say it's all going to work. But I think the idea is excellent and it must be encouraged.
Okay, it should be encouraged. I'd like to bring Sanjeev into the conversation. Sanjeev, your final words, and the sort of reservation that Shailja ma'am has is about the 70% people who don't have access to social media and broadband. In fact, I was reading a report today which said that if you have to interact with the Prime Minister, you can only write in English. So the Hindi version still has to come up. So how are you going to tackle all these issues?
Ironically, the PM is not very fluent in English.
See, that's not the point. As Shailja was saying, not everybody has broadband access. I fully agree with that. But the power of today's technology, the social media technology. I'll just cite one more example. We have a multi-layered WhatsApp group concept, which extends down to the booth level, which we have used in our election campaign. Just to give an example, when 370 discussions started happening, I was pleasantly surprised to receive a forwarded post from a remote, a person who is there in a district called Basti, a very remote place. That person actually forwarded me a WhatsApp post on Article 370. So what's happening is, guys there who has a WhatsApp can actually get to read this, and then that particular person, takes that discussion offline to people who are not having that broadband connection or a social media connection. So that's the power.
Yeah, but on the whole, I mean, how are you going to address the issue? Fine, this is great. I mean, even Shailja, you said it's a welcome step, but how to move beyond it to the other people, to the 70% of India?
As I said, if you empower certain number of people, the multiplying effect of disseminating that information and also getting feedback. So we have used our booth operatives to get feedback on local issues affecting their booths. So that is the minutest level, that is the remotest level. So this two-way mechanism, we are going to implement the same technology for governance purpose also, getting feedback on various initiatives which are being embarked upon from the government side, and also informing the stakeholders and also informing the citizen about those initiatives. So it will be a feedback as well as information dissemination kind of a model, two-way communication.
Okay, Jai ma'am, your final thoughts. I mean, Sanjeev is talking about feedback also. So, I mean...
Well, feedback and instant communication is at one level of life. But in the country, we have in long old times relied on oral tradition. Because of that, we have no value for history. And I keep thinking back to Gandhiji's time, Nehru's time. They wrote prolifically. And because of that, we have a huge lot of resource material that today gives us that kurak or punji or whatever you call it, to think politically. And I think that if we rely too much on this 140-word tweet, we are limiting history like instant coffee. It won't be good. Along with tweets which are at a certain level fine, we need to also create a body of archives of letters. Like if Modi ji now writes to all the chief ministers, he must write, he can't just tweet.
Yeah.
Maybe he's tweeted what he's thought or a sankshape of what he's written, but unless that is there for record, we will have no use for libraries, we will have no use for archives, we will have no use for history books, and if we junk our history like that in the name of technology, we would be missing out on what we can offer our future generations. So I just want this little word of caution.
Word of caution. Shadad, yours?
A final word is that, like you rightly pointed, a large amount of our population doesn't have access to internet and social media. So a proposal that was mooted by the UPA last time was that post offices are available in almost every village. You convert these post offices into centers where you can have access
Project Arrow.
I think it is called. So the entire village can have access to the internet. Their ministers can tweet and put Facebook updates. That's great, but also make them centers for accessing RTI. And if there are any defects in RTI, as Shailja ji pointed out, I request the Ministry of the Prime Minister's office actually controls it through DOPT to clear those misgivings and make sure that these post offices become centers of technology and RTI where common people can go and access their rights and information from those centers. I think that will be a very positive step.
Okay, great. So thanks so much, Shehzad and Jai ma'am, for joining us, and of course Sanjeev and Shailja ji, thanks so much for joining us on the conversation. We hope to have you on our conversations more often. So there you have it from the experts. They're saying that it's a welcome step that at least the new government is trying to communicate, but of course with reservations that there should be a framework in which we know that they are also being held accountable, plus to make it a hub in the rural areas to get their feedback and ensure that there is a healthy mechanism in place. You can also join in on our conversations and participate by logging on to our site indiapostlive.com, or you can send us your feedback on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @IndiaPostLive. Conversations will continue on India Post Live. Thanks so much for watching.